Hello, my name is Jonathan Cohn. I'm the policy director here at Progressive Mass, and we are delighted to have you joining us this evening to talk about the ballot questions that you will see this November on the ballot. Obviously, there are many things on the ballot that have been on people's minds, but in Massachusetts in particular, we have 5 statewide ballot questions. We will hear from presenters on behalf of all of the 5 questions that you'll see on the ballot. We will also at the end hear from presenters for kind of a set of district specific ballot questions that you might see if you're in a specific set of state legislative districts. That is kind of a general framework for the night. One thing I will also just quickly drop in the chat, we are curious to know what people are excited to work on this year. So I made just a quick survey that if at now or later or in the middle of this, if you want to tell us what you're excited to do this year. Are you excited to be working on any particular of these ballot questions, all of these ballot questions, some subset of them? So I'm just dropping a quick link on that in that regard into the chat. The election is coming up soon. As folks know, it's less than 2 months away. You will be getting a ballot in the mail in just a few weeks because of how early mail ballots come. And we want to make sure that everybody is an informed and engaged voter, both themselves and then engaging and informing other people. So also, we've already, as an organization, have formally endorsed 2 questions. We've already held endorsement votes on questions 2 and 5, which you'll again learn about this evening. We will be polling the other questions as well for endorsement. And if you would like to become a member and participate in our endorsement processes, just dropping that into the chat for how to become a member of Progressive Mass. We will go sequentially through the different questions this evening. Kind of, we're devoting about 15 minutes to each question. That's going to be a combination of presentation as well as questions. If you have a question during a presentation, drop it in the chat at any point in time, and we'll kind of curate a few of those questions to ask the presenters to help make sure that things move smoothly. Then to kick things off, I believe I saw her here, so I'm going to invite up State Auditor Diana DiZoglio to talk about question 1. So kind of Auditor DiZoglio, again, you'll have about kind of 15 minutes divided between presentation and then any questions at the end. So
Great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate the opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yes, I took you off spotlight instead of me. So okay, you're good.
No worries. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all virtually. It's great to see everyone. My name is Diana DiZoglio. I'm your state auditor. I'm really excited about many of the ballot questions, actually, but I am here tonight to talk about question 1. And slogan for it is question 1, bring on the sun. Question 1 is all about bringing sunlight to Beacon Hill, which is frequently ranked as having the least transparent state legislature in the entire nation. That's subject to public records laws, not subject to open meeting laws. Obviously, legislative work getting conducted in the middle of the night with no public hearings, no recorded roll calls. I know this is not a new story to Progressive Mass, who has worked diligently to increase transparency and accountability on Beacon Hill. Our office right now is trying to conduct an audit of the Massachusetts legislature, but the Speaker and Senate President have been pushing back tremendously so, refusing to cooperate with our office and our office's requests, even just for simple documents, receipts pertaining to even financial records to verify that financial statements are actually accurate. We have actually conducted audits of the state legislature dating back to the creation of the auditor's office back in 1849. We have conducted at least 117 audits of our state legislature since the inception of the auditor's office. And it's only been in recent years that those audits stopped happening. They stopped happening in the early 90s in sync with the first indictment of 3 indictments of speakers in the House of Representatives. That's the time period that the audits stopped happening. in our state legislature. They always existed before that. The reason why some folks, and I myself previously even thought that maybe they didn't exist before I actually took office, is because those audits were never digitized. They were held in some dusty old books on some dusty old shelves, and they were stacked up in the back of the auditor's office out of public view. So it was able to be said that they didn't exist, but they very much do. We've digitized those audits of the legislature. We've put them up on our website for public viewing. And we are advocating to bring back the practice. This is not something new. We're trying to bring back the practice of auditing our state legislature like we audit every other state entity across Massachusetts, including not just our executive agencies, but also our judiciary. We audit the judiciary as well. We audit the courts as well. This legislative audit would help to increase transparency and accountability, examine processes and procedures. We'd be able to look at things like whether or not sexual harassment training is occurring, or conflict of interest training, ethics training, whether or not those things are occurring. We'd be able to look at, again, those receipts to ensure that claimed expenditures are actually what the expenditures are. We do a reconciliation process.
Thank you.
We do a reconciliation process in the auditing process in places like UMass, the UMass system. We recently conducted audits of UMass Dartmouth and UMass Lowell, for example, where we were able to look at their credit card claimed expenditures, and then we were able to ask for documentation and view their receipts so that we could tell whether or not the claimed expenditures matched the receipts. Right now, we can't do that in the state legislature. They refuse to produce any receipts. We'd also be able to look at things like state contracting and procurement procedures. I'm not sure who had an opportunity recently to look at one of our most recent audits, but we just audited the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority. And in that audit, we ended up looking at issues pertaining to racial discrimination, retaliation, how employee complaints are handled. And we also looked at state contracting and procurement. There were a lot of allegations regarding the Convention Center Authority over the course of the last year or so. Our office went in. We actually uncovered through the audit that the law was violated regarding state contracts. And during the Baker administration, unlawful contracts were executed in the hundreds of thousands of dollars without following any procurement process or procedure, giving out no bid contracts. We also found that an unlawful $1.2 million non-disclosure agreement was executed to conceal allegations of racial discrimination and retaliation. These things are unacceptable. They shouldn't be happening in our state agencies. We referred that to the Attorney General's office. We can't look at those things in our state legislature because they refuse to participate in an audit like the Convention Center did participate in the audit to their credit, even though the findings were challenging. The new interim executive director participated in the audit, and she's getting to work to clean up the mess that was left by the previous administration. Also, just looking at all the concerns regarding, folks know the State House Employee Union, employees would like to unionize. There are a lot of challenges regarding employee issues. We were able to, in our recent audit of a contract that was privatized at the MBTA in recent years, we were able to conduct an audit of that contract where services were privatized during a loophole period in which the Taxpayer Protection Act was not required to be followed, again, by the previous administration. So the MBTA, during that loophole period, executed a contract with a private vendor, privatized services pertaining to safety, pertaining to performance. And we went in, we analyzed the contract, and we found out that that private vendor was not even appropriately training their employees to make sure that they were trained on safety. And we know we've had issue after issue regarding safety and performance at the MBTA. That's what we were able to uncover at the MBTA in one of our more recent audits. We can't look at training. We can't look at what is the case and if there are service level agreements in the contracts that the state legislature is executing because they refuse to participate in this audit. So we are looking to conduct the same type of audit that we conduct for all of these other state entities, and look at the same types of issues. And we would also be able to do comparative analyses and look at, for example, what other states do that maybe Massachusetts could do, but we don't do yet, for the purposes of augmenting the available services that the legislature does have, especially those that pertain to increasing that transparency and accountability and accessibility to those who are seeking information and the ability to have a seat at the table. We are leading on so many different things across Massachusetts. We've led the country in many, many different ways. We should be leading the country on this. I want to close because I know there might be questions, but just by saying, I love our legislature. I love our legislators. I think that there are so many good legislators across our Commonwealth who are doing really great work and advocating to the best of their ability to get the job done on behalf of their constituents. But the system is broken, and the culture of power on Beacon Hill does not do anything to ensure that there is a democratic process of any kind on Beacon Hill. So even though there are a lot of great people up there trying to do great work on many of our behalves, unfortunately, that toxic culture that promotes an anti-democratic system of governance is really having a negative impact on those legislators and on the communities that they represent, especially our underserved populations. We need to take action, and we need to do everything we can to help in increasing that accountability, accessibility, and transparency up on Beacon Hill. An audit won't be able to solve all of the issues. Many of the things that need to change do need to come from within the body, but an audit would help. And we're trying to do our part in the Office of State Auditor and do our jobs and simply conduct an audit, which is pretty much the only job of the Office of State Auditor, is to conduct audits. We'd love to be able to conduct that audit on your behalf, but because we've been blocked and because of the lack of participation, and also because we've been obstructed from being able to pursue this matter in court, our only avenue essentially is to bring this to the ballot, to ask all of you to please support this initiative when you go to vote in the November elections on November 5th. So please vote yes on one, bring back the practice of auditing. Let's make it explicit in the law that already says that all departments, offices, and activities are to be audited by the Office of State Auditor. Let's add in the language just to clear up the apparent confusion that that includes the general court, so that there are no more excuses about supposed exemptions that don't really exist. We'll just clear that up and we'll lay that out for everybody to see. We can't do that without you. Please vote yes on one, bring on the sun. And Jonathan, I'm going to turn it back over to you if there are any questions.
Awesome. And I'll bring up a few questions from the chat that I see people have. I'll start with kind of one of them that I'll kind of bundle two questions that I saw from people is, what are the arguments that you most commonly hear against this, and how would you then respond to them?
Okay, so the argument number one is that I shouldn't be the one to conduct this audit because I have been critical of legislative proceedings. And respectfully, that argument has come from legislative leaders and their loyalists for the most part. My argument back has been, I campaigned very transparently that this is what I was going to do on all of y'all's behalf if I was elected. And that election occurred. I was duly elected. I am the state auditor. It is my job to do the job now. I understand that not everybody, might like my personal style or whatever, but I am elected to do this job, and I am doing my best to do the job that exists before me. So personalities aside, I understand some people might not think I'm the one to do it, but I'm not on the ballot. I already was on the ballot. This is the issue that's on the ballot this year, is whether or not the Office of State Auditor should be auditing the legislature like every other entity, following those same guidelines. I further say to that argument, Jonathan, that I'm critical of the MBTA too. I've been critical of DCF's handling of underserved children. I have been critical of Elder Affairs when they have lied to our office about updating their regulations pertaining to elder abuse and neglect cases. I was critical of the convention center's use of non-disclosure agreements. Certainly, I have not heard a public outcry to ask me to stop auditing entities like the MBTA. So we all have our opinions. We still have jobs to do. And yes, I do have an opinion that the legislature needs a lot of help when it comes to transparency and accountability. I will continue to share my opinion and to do my job. The other is constitutionality. We've gotten pushback from leaders who say that they don't believe this is constitutional. Respectfully, that's a bogus argument. If the executive branch is not able to provide any oversight because the legislature makes its own rules and because of some supposed separation of powers in that regard, then that would mean that state ethics would not be able to do their job. It would also mean that we can kiss the Office of Campaign and Political Finance goodbye because they're part of the executive branch. Furthermore, the legislature oftentimes conducts oversight hearings, even through a committee that's called the Post Audit and Oversight Committee. And they often conduct oversight and audit hearings over the executive branch agencies. We saw that during the COVID-19 pandemic response with the Baker administration. We've seen MBTA oversight hearings, executive branch. So the legislature provides oversight through their hearings, and the executive branch through the State Ethics Commission and OCPF. And the judiciary is also a different department, branch of government. If the judiciary can't provide oversight to the legislature because of separation of powers, we're going to have some problems. So I find it unfortunate that the only time the separation of powers appears to be a problem for legislators is when it pertains to this audit, but they fail to recognize that if there was a separation of powers preventing oversight regarding one branch of another, that all of those entities would no longer be able to provide any oversight of other branches like they have been doing for many, many years.
Thank you. And let me get to another question in the chat. And I think I'm going to read the two parts of the question. I think the second part also kind of addresses that question. Will address some other ones in the chat. So if question one passes, how would audits be prioritized and when would audit progress and results be published? E.g. prioritization, interim reports, final reports, etc. And then the second question there was if we used to perform audits of the legislature, is it legal to perform one now? And if so, could the legislature be compelled to cooperate by the courts?
So first question is that we would prioritize it based on our resources. Unfortunately, our office has been retaliated against, and we have not seen the resources that we need come into the Office of State Auditor to be able to conduct the audits in as robust of a fashion as I would like, and in a more timely fashion, which I would like. The previous auditor was not able to meet the mandate of conducting audits once every 3 years. Our office is really trying to do so, but we're doing so after just seeing a 4 to 5 times less of an increase than other constitutional officers who got 9 and 10% increases. Our office got 2. The COLAs last year in our office were 8%. So we are doing the best that we can with what we have, but it is dependent upon resources when we do get to do audits. However, we are conducting an audit of the legislature right now, and that audit will be released in hopefully coming weeks. We're working really hard to get it done, but the audit is really lacking because it doesn't have a lot of the information that we requested in order to complete the audit. I'm releasing the audit anyways because I really do want people to see what an audit would look like. I know there have been a lot of questions. What would an audit look like? So we are going to be releasing that audit hopefully in coming weeks so that folks can see what an audit of the legislature would look at. Again, it would be focused on processes, procedures, and also those financials and state contracts.
Awesome.
I hope that
Thank
answers the
you.
question.
And then I'll just do two other questions that I see, and then kind of going on to the next one. And I'll read both out. One, somebody was asking about, is this binding? That gets to part of the part of what you were just talking about. And then have another person noting about referencing the One Globe article from a few months ago about like the high-end meals from the legislature, in the situation that they're in now of kind of being gone for a number of months, where any single person can effectively hold up legislation. And to what extent would the audit be able to touch on some of those aspects of the way that the state house works?
I'll do my best to get to all those things. If I forget something, please hit me up in an email, friends, because I'm happy to respond to an email too if I forgot something or missed something. So regarding the meals and the Globe articles and all that, I can tell you that these audits, when they first started getting done way back in the day, audited down to the last cigar purchase by the Speaker of the House. It actually listed how much money was spent on cigars by the Speaker's office. So we would be able to look at all of those receipts and find out exactly what those receipts say, as long as they're complying and they're handing over those receipts. The compliance factor in and of itself, this goes back to the last question too. And yes, this would be something that would be law after the ballot question passes, that it would be the same as the governor signing off on the law, and that being enacted. Uh, yes, it could end up going to court. And I've been asked about, if it goes to court, what are we thinking? I'm prepared for that court battle. I actually have repeatedly asked to go to court and to settle the fact that the current law already stipulates that the legislature is subject to audits. And it's my stern belief that they're violating the law right now. But I have been prevented from having an impartial hearing in court, which is every resident's constitutional right in the state of Massachusetts to get that impartial hearing. Our office has been denied that, unfortunately, that opportunity to have the matter adjudicated in court. So we'll see if legislative leaders want to challenge the will of the people after that November election, when I have every confidence that this is going to pass. We'll see if they want to challenge this in court. And if they do, I'm prepared for that battle. I've been preparing for the last couple of years for that. And hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully legislative leaders simply respect the will of the people and cooperate as they always used to before the early 90s.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And just final quick question. If people want to learn more about question one, where should they go?
Sure. You can just go to my website. It's dianaforma.com, dianaforma.com, and then just click on the ballot button and it'll tell you all you need to know right there. We're really grassroots at this point. Donations have slowed a little bit. So if anybody would like to make a contribution, feel free to click the donate button too. The biggest challenge, in my opinion, was getting this on the ballot. I am putting my faith in the voters, that the voters are going to go and vote for this. But certainly we are looking for some assistance, letters to the editor, contributions, and any assistance, just posting to your social media, letting folks know that we have an opportunity to really make some meaningful change here. Let's not miss this moment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And can I get a round of Zoom applause for Auditor Diana DiZoglio before we go on to the next speaker?
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us.